Hi there. I just want to wish you a happy Sabbath. Things are a little bit different today. Epic Church is completely online, but we're so happy that you're joining us today. Just want to make you aware of a couple of things that will be happening in the future. I want you to plug into our newsletter and our website and our YouTube page. We're going to be having some fresh content. We really don't want to forget about our kids. So on our YouTube page, we're going to have a private link where some of our epic parents are going to read their best bedtime stories. And so we're going to have some really cool things for our kids, as well as we have a Netflix party planned in the future. What is that? Look in the newsletter. That's where all the details are. Also, we have an online Bible study this Thursday, 8 o'clock. You get to talk, you get to participate. It'll be a conversation on the book of Joshua. So that's Thursday, 8 o'clock. Again, look at the newsletter for details. And there's and much more will be happening as well. Just really want you to know that as a community, even though we can't physically gather together, our hearts are with everyone. We want to stay connected. We want to know what the needs are. We want to be praying for each other. And especially those on the front lines. Some of our community are medical personnel. I was told to make a shout out to Ravi, so there you go, buddy. And I just want you to know that even if we're not physically together, we can be together in spirit. And once again, just happy Sabbath. So glad that you've joined us today. The bathrooms are in your house. You should know where those are.
Grace has been enough, and I'm believing the best is yet to come. The cross before me, my hope on things above, and in you Your presence is an open door. We want you, Lord, like never before. Your presence is an open door. So come now, Lord, like never before. We want to welcome you to the stream, this video. Wherever you might be, wherever you're tuning in from, I invite you to just really invite God into your presence. I know wherever you might be, He'll join you there. And at this time, normally for meeting in this space together, we would shake a hand, but encourage you to just pull out your phone or something. Maybe open Messenger and find a loved one, or maybe someone you haven't been in contact with for a while, or maybe somebody you just texted 5 minutes ago, and make sure you tell them that you're thinking about them, that you're praying for them. And then maybe you can send them a link to this video, and maybe they can worship today too. Let's worship together. No matter the situation you're facing, we serve a God who can accomplish the impossible. And we know that breakthrough is coming. So let's sing it together. I know breakthrough is coming. By faith, I see a miracle. My God made me a promise and He won't stop now. I know breakthrough is coming. By faith, I've seen a miracle. My God made me a promise and He won't stop now. One more time. I know breakthrough is coming. By faith, I see a miracle. My God made me a promise and He won't stop now. Father, I just ask for a blessing on whoever's watching this, whoever that might be, as we worship together in your name today. Just please join us wherever we are. Let us feel an overwhelming sense of peace and comfort and love from you today. In your precious name, amen. I need you. Soften my heart, break me apart. I need you to open my eyes to see that you're shaping my life. All I surrender. Give me faith to trust what you say, that you're good, your love is great. Oh, I'm broken inside, I give you my life. cleanse every part of me. All I am, all I am, I surrender. Give me faith to trust what you say, that you're good, your love is great. Oh, I'm broken inside, I give you my love. I may be weak, but your spirit's strong in me. My flesh may fail, my God, you never will. 'Cause I may be weak, but your spirit's strong in me. My flesh may fail, my God, you never will. 'Cause I may be weak, but your spirit's strong in me. My flesh may fail, my God, you never will. 'Cause I may be weak, but your spirit's strong in me. My flesh may fail, my God, you. Let's sing that one more time. 'Cause I may be weak, your spirit's strong in me. My flesh may fail, my God, you never will. Trust what you say, that you're good, your love is great. I'm broken inside, I give you my life. 'Cause I may be weak, but your spirit's strong in me. My flesh may fail, my God, you never will. 'Cause I may be weak, your spirit's strong in me. My flesh may fail, my God, you never will. 'Cause I may be weak, your spirit's strong in me. My flesh may fail, my God, you never will. When darkness tries to roll over my bones, when sorrow comes, steal the joy I own. Brokenness and pain is all I know. I won't be shaken, no, I won't be shaken. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. I won't be shaken. I won't be shaken. Yeah. Oh, my fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. There's power that can break off every chain. There's power that can empty out a grave. There's resurrection power that can save. There's power in your name. Power in your name. There's power that can break up every chain. There's power that can empty out a grave. There's resurrection power that can save. There's power in your name. Power in your name. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. Let's sing it together. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. Jesus, thank you for this chance to worship you. Once again, I ask, wherever we might be, just touch our hearts, open our ears, open our minds for your word today. God, just spend time with us in each of our individual homes, wherever we might be. Thank you for your grace and for your love. We're here before you now, so just meet us here. Amen.
Okay, I want to thank the praise team for leading us in worship as we worship at home and abroad. Today's story is almost at the end of the story of Jesus. He's actually on the last road trip that he's going to have, so everything that he says is going to be really important, because this is his last chance to tell the world who he is, to let his disciples know what he's about. So let's get into it. This is going to be in Luke chapter 19. If you have your Bibles, please follow along. The scripture is also going to be on the screen. Luke chapter 19, starting with verse 1. Jesus entered Jericho and was passing through. A man was there by the name of Zacchaeus. He was a chief tax collector and was wealthy. Okay. He wanted to see who Jesus was, but being a short man, he could not because of the crowd. So he ran ahead and climbed a sycamore fig tree to see him, since Jesus was coming that way. When Jesus reached the spot, he looked up and said to him, "Zacchaeus, come down immediately. I must stay at your house today." So he came down at once and welcomed him gladly. All the people saw this and began to mutter, "He has gone to be the guest of a sinner." But Zacchaeus stood up and said to the Lord, "Look, Lord, here and now I give half of my possessions to the poor, and if I have cheated anyone out of anything, I will pay back 4 times the amount." Jesus said to him, "Today salvation has come to this house, because this man too is a son of Abraham. For the Son of Man came to seek and to save what was lost."
We're in the middle of our series, I Want a Movie Life, and today's movie is from the Star Wars universe. Okay, yeah, the Star Wars universe. Did you know that Star Wars movies have made over $10 billion? That's a capital B, $10 billion. Here are current estimates that 50% of the people alive in the U.S. right now have seen one of the Star Wars films from the original trilogy. 50% of the people alive, that's a lot of people. And new estimates say that 10% of adults alive in the U.S., I know we're in Canada, it's a little different, but 10% of the adults alive have seen at least one of the new movies from the new trilogies of Star Wars. So Star Wars is huge. Now, this is a disclaimer that I'm just going to give here. We're not giving a recommendation here, okay? We're not telling you go, Epic Church says, go watch Star Wars, but also, we're not saying that. All right, let me explain. There's this Christian scholar. This is what he says. He says, Christians, followers of Jesus, these are two questions that you should ask anytime you go watch a movie as a follower of Jesus, okay? That's what he says. He says, first one is, what lie is this movie trying to tell me? That's a good question, right? What lie is this movie trying to tell me I need to be beautiful in order to fit in? See, that's a lie, right? That's not true. That's not true. Is this movie trying to tell me that the universe has my best interest? The universe knows me? That's also not true. Because the universe doesn't know you. It's impersonal. God knows you, knows your name, and is very invested in you. That's the truth. But then he says, the second question you need to ask if you're watching a movie as a follower of Jesus is, what truth does this movie tell us in spite of itself? Because if a movie is connecting with you, is connecting with someone, it's because it's actually giving something truthful. And then this is what he says. We live in a culture that is so incredibly media saturated that if we don't learn to read media well, we will in many ways lose any credibility we have in speaking to the culture. So just to use discernment when we engage with films. You know, George Lucas, the creator of Star Wars, was actually being interviewed about the overt spirituality found in the Star Wars universe. This is what he says. He speaks about the Force. Best way to explain the Force is to say space magic. I need a better explanation for that. But this is what he says about it. Okay, he says, I put the Force into the movie in order to try and awaken a certain kind of spirituality in young people, Lucas said. More a belief in God than a belief in any particular religious system. I wanted to make it so that young people would begin to ask questions about the mystery. So see, this is both really good and also really bad, depending on the journey you take, right? To search God, that's really important, that's noble, but it also depends on how you take that journey. It really comes down to discernment, what the scriptures call discernment, just thinking it through. And then George Lucas elaborates a little more. He says the spirituality of Star Wars is basically based in great deal to Eastern philosophy. All that stuff, right? But then there is another truth that's going in Star Wars that is actually not found in Eastern philosophy, and it's this powerful truth of redemption. The truth of self-sacrifice, repentance, forgiveness, grace. And this truth begins with the villains in Star Wars. Darth Vader, original trilogy. And in this new one, newest villain, Kylo Ren. Kylo Ren, good-looking guy, as you can see here in this picture. I hope this is where it's showing up. He's actually a conflicted character throughout the whole film. He carries great brokenness. There's this inner turmoil going on. We know this. An early mentor of his even tried to kill him, Luke Skywalker. Throughout the film, he doesn't know who he is. He's just trying to find himself. Even those who are supposed to be for him are constantly telling him he doesn't belong, that he's weak, that he won't amount to anything. This is what's going on in the film. And so the movies, the new trilogy is trying to answer the question, so is Kylo Ren good or is he bad? And throughout each movie, he seems to be crossing a line where he keeps moving towards evil or the dark side. He crosses a major line that you can't really take back. In one of the movies, he kills his father, kills innocent people. He crosses yet another line where he kills his mentor. It's a kind of a violent film, as you can tell. So then the movies are asking this question. Can someone who's gone this far be redeemed? And throughout the movies, his story is actually being told through the mask that he wears. This is his mask. The mask is based on a Japanese samurai Edo period mask. The mask hides who he really is, and throughout the movie, the mask actually becomes broken, and his face becomes scarred. This is what the director, J.J. Abrams, says. The brokenness, talking about the mask, represents his inner turmoil. The mask reveals what you're hiding. And in the latest film, The Rise of Skywalker, which we're talking about today, the broken mask is put together. Kintsukuroi, it's called Golden Repair, and where the broken pieces are put together with lines of gold. And he begins to lead from his wounding. His pain becomes his source for power, his source for more hate from his wounding. And you know what? This is a classic move for a villain. To lead from a scar, to lead from a broken place, because it's really hard to find a villain that doesn't have a scar. Think about it. A limp or a disability. Just to really try and think of a movie where there's a bad guy and he doesn't have something that makes him look not normal. Maybe it's a hook, disfigurement, an eye thing. Okay, this guy's name is Goffman, and he talks about disabilities in movies, and he says that society in general will give villains an undesirable difference that makes them look dangerous, not quite human. They are different than the normals. Someone else takes it further. If you get a villain who now has a scar, which is Kylo Ren's perspective, Moss and Rosser say this: the change in appearance threatens and changes their sense of self and personhood, and this leads to an anticipation of rejection, concealment, avoidance, wearing a mask, and their wounding, their brokenness, their physical appearance becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So this is what happened with Kylo Ren. He's leading from brokenness, he's leading from his wounding, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So we start our story today from the scriptures with a villain. His name is Zacchaeus. It's supposed to mean pure, but he's not. He is the chief tax collector. So in that region, he's in charge of all the tax collectors. By the way, tax collectors weren't given a salary. They simply collected taxes on behalf of the Roman government. They collected taxes to their own people, and then they would charge extra, and that was their salary. So this is what the tax collector, and he's in charge of all the tax collectors, and he is hated. He is the villain. There's no question about it. I mean, to say that Zacchaeus was hated is a complete understatement. He's more hated than a Roman soldier, because not only are you taking my money, but you are a traitor who've betrayed your nation. Now you're gouging your own people. But here's what I find interesting in this story. No little boy in Israel grew up saying, I want to be a tax collector when I grow up. Nobody does that. It's actually a really long journey to become a tax collector, and this journey is probably full of pain and rejection and other choices. And the key to this story is found in verse 3. Verse 3, this is where Luke describes our villain. He says, but being a short man, he could not, because of the crowd. He could not see Jesus because of the crowd. A lot of interpreters, by the way, will see this verse and they'll say, Luke is speaking about Zacchaeus being short in faith. They spiritualize it. That's not at all what one guy actually says. They don't mean he's short. They just mean that he's young. He's young. He hasn't finished growing. But anytime that Luke describes someone's physical appearance, describes their physical, but he only does it 4 times, it's with a purpose. And it's the central part of the story. There's a woman who's bent over her whole life. You can't understand her story unless you know that. There's a man who's lame from birth at the front of the temple in Acts. There's an Ethiopian eunuch. That's another kind of injury. You can only understand their story if you go right into the wounding. And then we have Zacchaeus. These are the words. Helikia mikros. That's what Luke uses. And this word was used to describe, all the way up to the 4th century BC, pathological dwarfism. In practical sense, Zacchaeus was shorter than 4'10" in modern standards. Just a disclaimer here, by the way. Little people, that's the term, do not agree about whether or not they are part of the wider disability community. Okay? But what they can agree on and what we can see is that looking different in that kind of way will lead to something else called social disability, which is makes relationships and connections that much more difficult. And if we just take a step back into ancient times and look at what Zacchaeus' life was for him, there's a guy, his name is Mikhail Parsons. He looks at the way that ancient people used to look at the physical body, and this is what he says. He says, there would be an assumption regarding outward bodily traits expressing inward characteristics. So this led to the belief that you did sins because on the inside you were sinful. Does that make sense? If you looked a certain way, then it means you behaved this way. And so when people saw Zacchaeus, they saw something different. And so they treated him differently. It actually goes a little bit further. In the Bible, it specifically mentions Leviticus 21:20. It says, or is a hunchback, or a dwarf, or a man who has a defect in his eyes, eczema or scab, or is a eunuch, it's speaking that they cannot serve in the temple. I mean, the end of the chapter says that they may partake in fellowship, he may eat the bread, verse 22, both the most holy and the holy. But at the time of Jesus, they hadn't even read to the end of this text. They had just enforced the first part. So this is what we know right away. Zacchaeus couldn't go to the temple. Zacchaeus was never welcome in church. And Zacchaeus, when at the end of the story, people call him a sinner, people already had that external confirmation about what kind of person he was, simply because of who he looked like. So we're talking about a guy that has a self-fulfilling prophecy put upon him. Has someone ever judged you before you even had a chance? Like maybe your history, where you come from, that already determines your future? If you only knew my past, you know exactly why I act the way I do. Someone's already written your future. My genetics, this is how my dad is, this is how my mom is, this is how I'm going to be. This was the reality with Zacchaeus. And so what does he do? No one wants to be a tax collector unless it gives you power. And money gives him power. And Zacchaeus compensates from his wounding. Compensates. Because he can't get respect and acceptance, then power will give him that. And lines are crossed. Contracts are signed with Rome. And he's in this place where he can't turn back on his decision. And he is now the hated tax collector, the outcast. No one will ever talk to him. No one will ever invite him to their house because he's gone too far. Are you in this situation today? Do you think you've crossed the line? That you've made a decision that you can't take back anymore? You're caught in this self-reinforcing state. But then a rumor starts. He hears a rumor that Jesus has these close friends around him called the disciples, and that one of them used to be a tax collector. It's true. He's asking other tax collectors, and they're saying, yeah, we saw it. We heard it. In Luke chapter 5, Jesus calls a tax collector, his name is Levi, also Matthew, and invites him to be a disciple. Levi throws a party for Jesus, and that's it. That's all that Zacchaeus needs to know. And he has just a little bit of hope. Because you see, a little bit of hope is all you ever need, especially if you're desperate. And so he hears that Jesus is coming through Jericho. And he can't see Jesus because of his stature. So it says, he runs and climbs a tree, a sycamore tree. Sycamore trees have short trunks, all right? They have long branches. They can grow up to 40 feet tall, a big tree. So I want you to picture Zacchaeus running. By the way, back then, grown men did not run. That was undignified. So when he's doing that, he's already opening himself up to more ridicule. But you know what? He doesn't care because hope makes you do crazy things. He climbs the tree because, verse 3 tells us, he wanted to see who Jesus was. Isn't that interesting? What would he have to see in order to confirm his expectations? Because with that little bit of hope, he had an expectation already of who God was. And you know what? We all actually walk around with expectations of who God is. I wonder who God really is. I've heard the stories about God. Man, I've even gone to church and I've heard people talk about God. But who is God really? Here's what the story of Zacchaeus tells us. God will always overwhelm your expectations. Yeah. He is more grace than you imagined. He is more goodness than you imagined. He is more life than you can imagine. And as Zacchaeus is up on that tree waiting to see what kind of person Jesus is, Jesus stops the whole thing. Calls out his name, Zacchaeus, come down immediately. I'm hearing some like parental tones, right? Billy, you get down from that tree, right? Jesus is like, Zacchaeus, get down from that tree. And then Jesus says those words, I must stay at your house today. No, he doesn't. Jesus doesn't need to. He's actually not even going to stay in Jericho. Remember, he's at the end of his time on earth. He doesn't have much time left, but somehow Jesus is saying that he must make time for Zacchaeus. I must stay at your house. Why? Because this is who Jesus is. This is why Jesus is here. This is why God is here. This is the mission statement of Jesus, John 3:16 and 17. Check it out. For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish but have eternal life. 17. For God did not send his Son into the world to condemn the world, but to save the world through him. Jesus doesn't come to condemn. Jesus comes to save. If you need saving, if you need help, if you need love, Jesus is there for you. That's why he came. I must go to your house. And then the crowd begins to murmur. We don't know if they're murmuring at the road or already in Zacchaeus' house. But the crowd is murmuring, can you believe that he's going to the house of a sinner? You see, back then, if you go to someone's house, it's an automatic sign of friendship. And Jesus is now showing friendship to a sinner. How could he? Doesn't Jesus know that they sin there? Doesn't Jesus know what they do in that house when the doors are closed and no one's looking? Doesn't Jesus know what you do in your house when no one's there and no one's looking? Guess what? Jesus already knows all that. Jesus knew all that, and he still wants to go to your house. That's it. He wants your friendship so badly. I must go to your house. And I could just imagine this space getting a little awkward for the disciples. You know, the group of people that follow Jesus around. Because I think about it. What kind of a reception does a tax collector throw? Right? It's not going to be a Christian-friendly reception, I'll tell you that, because all of his friends are tax collectors, and all the things that he's been doing for fun are tax collector fun-doing things, and they're not necessarily, upright standing citizens. So you can imagine the disciples getting a little awkward, right? And not just that, Jesus is also accused a bunch of times of being a drunkard and a glutton because he's always doing these kinds of things. And as the people murmur, it's not actually all bad what they're doing. Do you know that? Because their intentions seem good. It kind of makes sense if you think about it. We don't want to get corrupted by the ways of these wicked people. And it's kind of intense because their previous generations, their ancestors, intermingled and integrated so much with the nations around them, practices, whatever you want to call it, that they lost their own identity. They actually lost their nation, and they're all taken captive. This generation, at the time of Jesus, vows that they will never be corrupted. I mean, it's a good intention, right? Like it kind of makes sense. We will never interact with sinners. We will never go to their houses because we will be holy, uncorruptible. But they're missing one thing. Here's what they're missing. Holiness is not the goal. It's okay. It can happen along the way. That's fine. It's not the goal. Sinning less, that's not the goal. That's not the goal. The goal, what they were called for, what we're all called for, has always been to love more. That's the goal. Whatever happens along that way, so be it. But the goal is to love more. And then the story takes a radical twist. So we go back to Kylo Ren. He's a villain that's crossed all these lines. The movies are asking the question, is he good? Can he be redeemed? Is he good? Can he be redeemed? He keeps crossing the lines. And then in a pivotal scene, his mom, Leia, right? She makes an intervention to speak to him through space magic. I need a better, whatever. And to reach out to him and let him know that he's not beyond redemption. And then in the next moment, he has a memory from his father, Han Solo. Again, offering him forgiveness and a path to redemption. You know that you read some of the forums of the people commenting on the scene, the fans had a really hard time forgiving Kylo, a fictitious character. They have a really hard time because they've seen what he does, the lines that he's crossed. This really goes against justice. That's why it's called grace. And Kylo Ren in the moment turns from dark to light. And Rey, his enemy, later ally, gives him grace at a time when she could strike him down as well. And so you have this thing where an irredeemable villain is suddenly redeemed. And his first step is to begin his new life radically by throwing his lightsaber into the ocean. And for the rest of the movie, he devotes his life to helping others, even sacrificing his life. Sorry, I should have said spoilers, but it's your fault if you haven't seen it already. And that, in the Rise of Skywalker, that moment is gospel truth. It's redemption, pure and simple. That no matter where you are in your life, you cannot be tired. I can never be tired of hearing this message, that no matter how many lines you've crossed, you are always welcome back. You are always welcome home. It's completely possible. That's the good news of the gospel. That's it. And the only requirement to begin this relationship, to begin this conversation with Jesus, is honesty. That's it. People call Zacchaeus a sinner. You expect in the next verse for him to say, wait, no, I'm not, and kind of do something. He doesn't disagree. He doesn't disagree with that label. He's honest about who he is. Are we honest about who we are? Are we still caught in that place where you're trying to put your best self forward, especially if we're in a church environment? No, it's the only thing that Jesus wants is honesty. He already knows it. He just wants you to know it. And this is the pattern that's established throughout Jesus' ministry. Honesty first. I need help. I'm a sinner. Then belief. Help my unbelief. Some guy can't even believe in one of those stories of Jesus. Help my unbelief. And then repentance. And then life change. Always starts with honesty. And there's so much missing from this story. You'd expect. By the way, that's just a dry throat. I don't think I have actually anything. But, stay separated and we'll clean the stand after. The only thing that Jesus gives Zacchaeus throughout this whole engagement is unconditional acceptance. Jesus doesn't even preach. Did you know that? Jesus doesn't preach. Jesus doesn't get moral on him. None of that. Jesus just gives him love and grace. You give Jesus honesty, you get love and grace. And then Zacchaeus, from then, life starts getting interesting. He takes it to the extreme. That's what he says. Look, Lord, here and now I give half of my possessions to the poor, and if I have cheated anybody out of anything, I will pay back 4 times the amount. This is what he's saying. The Bible, the Old Testament, the first part of the Bible had a bunch of rules. If you took money that wasn't yours, the usual thing was to return. This is Leviticus 6:5. It was return the funds and pay 20% extra. But on special occasions, basically like when you took someone's horse or cow, you were supposed to pay 4 times the amount. Zacchaeus volunteers the stiffest penalty, and he gives away half of his money. That's it. Some of us have been in this conversation, this religious, spiritual conversation for a while, and you're kind of at the place where, I'm honest with God, I'm showing up, I'm doing that, I'm kind of stuck on that life change part. This is what we can take from the Zacchaeus story. This is what it looked like for him in real life. He gave away half his money. If Zacchaeus does everything that he says he's going to do, he's probably going to go bankrupt. Did you know that? That's actually what he's saying, that he wants to go bankrupt, and that life change can be messy. Because here's a fundamental truth for Zacchaeus. For Zacchaeus, that's important. Money can no longer be his master. It's got to go. The power and prestige that's got to go. And then life change will happen. Here's what's funny. Jesus doesn't tell him to do that. Zacchaeus already knew what it was that he had to give up. And this is where it gets real. There are some things in your life right now that can no longer be your master. They simply can no longer be in your life. They can be in other people's lives, but they cannot be in your life. There are some relationships that you can no longer have. That's just life. There are some habits that you cannot do. There are some indulgences that you just can't. There are some places that you can just no longer visit. Some of your friends can visit. Nothing will happen to them. But for you, and you know what it is, Zacchaeus already knew what it was, you cannot do that. And sometimes religious communities, we get in trouble because we do these blanket statements, right? No one can do this. But that's not the case. You know what you shouldn't do. Zacchaeus already knew what he shouldn't do. If you're thinking to yourself, okay, I get it, but can I still do this thing? Guess what? You just brought it up. That means you know you shouldn't. That's what's going on with Zacchaeus. If you're stuck at life change, that's the first takeaway from the Zacchaeus story. The second thing, for some of us, incremental change is not going to be enough. It's been a life pattern. You got to go with a whole other extreme. It's not about giving up completely. It's just going the whole other extreme. Zacchaeus not only gives up his money, he becomes radically generous, okay? For some of you, by the way, there's no judging here because I can't see in your living room right now. Or can I? No, I can't. Some of you are late to everything. Let's just be honest, okay? Something real practical, right? Hey, when's the meeting? 7 o'clock. You're always there 7:15. Did you know that saying to yourself, I'm going to be on time at 7 is not enough? You need to say you're going to be there at 6:30. It needs to be a radical change. Yeah, that's like incremental's not enough. And the last thing that Zacchaeus does is he does radical accountability. He could have thought all those things in his heart. He really could have. And silently done it. But this is what he does. He stands up. He declares publicly, this is what I'm going to do in a group. When you do that, by the way, you're saying, I can't do this alone. I need help. I need help. These are my intentions. I need people to keep me on the straight and narrow. I need help. That's what he declares, radical accountability. And that's where as communities of Jesus, we can come together and we can pray for each other and we can encourage each other because that's radical accountability. And then this is how the story ends. Jesus, verse 9. Jesus said to him, today salvation has come to this house because this man too is a son of Abraham. This man, too, is a son of Abraham. I just want to end on one last word, that word that Jesus says. Today. Today. Today speaks immediacy, urgency. It's right now. If the Spirit of God is speaking to you right now, it's today. It's right now. This makes this a sacred moment. That's the word that Jesus uses. And there's something else with today. Today is isolated from the past. If you think you've crossed too many lines on your journey, that you cannot be redeemed, that was then. This is today. The truth is that Jesus wants to come to your house knowing your entire past, knowing what you have in your house, knowing all of that. He wants you there because his mission was to redeem the broken. That's his mission. He wants to redeem. He wants to transform. He wants to restore you today in your house. And then he ends the story by saying, because this man too is a son of Abraham. This is Jesus' way of saying, this man belongs in my family. This man has a place where he belongs. You belong in God's family. You have a place that is waiting for you. You have a God that would do anything to have you in his family. He just wants to say, no matter what other voices are saying, no matter what's happened in your life, God is for you. And you have a place in God's family, and he loves you. And with that in mind, I want to invite the praise team back up.
The same God that never fails will not fail me now. You won't fail me now in the waiting. The same God who's never late is working all things out. You're working all things out. Yes, I will lift you high in the lowest valley. Yes, I will bless your name. Oh yes, I will sing for joy when my heart is heavy all my days. Yes, I will. God that never fails will not fail me now. You won't fail me now in the waiting. The same God who's never late is working all things out. You're working all things out. Oh yes, I will lift you high in the lowest valley. Yes, I will bless your name. Oh yes, I will sing for joy when my heart is heavy all my day. Yes, I will. Come on. All my days. Yes, I will. I choose to pray. Glorify the name of all names. Nothing can stand against, and I choose to praise. To glorify the name of all names. Nothing can stand against, and I choose to praise. To glorify the name of all names. Nothing can stand against, and I choose to praise. To glorify the name of all names. Nothing can stand against. Oh yes, I will lift you high in the lowest valley. Yes, I will bless your name. Oh yes, I will sing for joy when my heart is heavy all my days. Yes, I will for all my days. Yes, I will for all my days. Yes, I will. One, two, three, four. I know breakthrough is coming. By faith I see a miracle. My God made me a promise and He won't stop now. I know breakthrough is coming. By faith I see a miracle. My God made me a promise and He won't stop now. One more time we sing. I know breakthrough is coming. By faith Your presence is an open door. We want you, Lord.